Masechet Moed Katan. This is the last Mishnah of the first Perek, and then we'll begin the second Perek as well. We're talking about activities that are permitted or not permitted during Chol HaMoed. And then one of the general principles is that one can do something as a layperson, but not in a professional way. Another principle we'll see here is something that will be useful on Chol HaMoed itself. They're not preparing for afterwards. So here we go. Osin ma'akel agag uvela mirpeset ma'aseh hedyot. If one needs to construct a railing for a roof or a balcony, you can do it as in a non-professional way. Abalo ma'aseh but not a professional way. Obviously, we're talking about someone that you're doing a good job. We don't want anyone to fall off this rickety roof that you didn't get a professional to make. But the point is, it's something that is important. You need to do it right away. But still, not a professional way. You can fix it up afterwards, make it look nicer. Shafina tesedakin umagilin otan b'magila biyadu baregel avalo b'machalasayim. One can plaster cracks, let's say in an oven or a roof. And you can use a roller. You put some plaster, and then you use a roller like some painters do today. And you can use your hands or your feet also to push it in, smooth out that plaster, as long as you don't use this machalasayim, a presser or a trowel, some kind of professional tool, and that would not be okay. The Gemara is going to ask about this because it looks like a roller would also be a professional tool. So why is that allowed and this machalasayim not allowed? All right, we'll see about that. And now, hasir v'hasinor v'korah v'manur v'mafteach shenishberu. All different pieces of door assembly, the hinge, the cylinder, the crossbeam, the lock and key, all these things that broke, you can fix them because they're essential. You can't leave your door unlocked, not safe. As long as you don't time it to be during Chol HaMoed. In other words, broke before, but I leave it broken. Chol HaMoed will have more time because we're not doing other things, and I'll fix it then. No, don't do that. Try to make sure it's in good working order beforehand. If it should break on Chol HaMoed, you can fix it. And anything that needs preserving, like pickles or that you can eat on the moed itself, you can begin the pickling process, preservation. Like for example, fish, they would put in salt and brine to keep it from spoiling. As long as you can eat it on Chol HaMoed, then you can also pickle it on Chol HaMoed. Good. What is an example when you want to fix a fence, railing, that would be in a non-professional way? Rav Yosef Amar palm branches and branches of bay trees. We saw this exact phrasing in the previous example. Or another way, you can put stones in that area, but not plaster the stones, right? We saw the same phrasing regarding rebuilding a wall. So same thing here. So you can make it in a temporary way, means put stones, and that's fine. After Chol HaMoed, then you'll add the plaster and make it even stronger. So when we're fixing a crack in an oven or a roof, if you tell me I can use a tool, a roller, then for sure I can use a hands and feet to pat the plaster down. That's even less of a professional way. Hachikama is what we meant. Here's what it means to say, that you can plaster the cracks and roll over them as if with a roller, using your hands and feet. So use your hands and feet and you just get it straight, but not actually using a roller and not actually using a trowel or a presser. So that solves all the problems, questions that we had up above. The parts of the door are permitted. We have a contradiction. This is a Mishnah in Sotah and in Maaser Sheni that says Yochanan Kohen Gadol, until his time, you would hear hammers beating in Yerushalayim during Chol HaMoed. People were fixing their things that need to be fixed. They'd be fixing their doors and things like that. But so ad yamav'in mikan ve'elach la. We can infer from this that from the time of him on, and he's during, he's way in the middle of the second Bet HaMikdash, and from then on, not allowed, no working at all, no banging. So that would mean that fixing your door assemblies would be prohibited. So how do we deal with this contradiction? Lakashya kan bid napache kan bid nagare. Here, when we're talking about this prohibited, this Mishnah in Maaseh Sheni, that's talking about the work of smiths, blacksmith. They're banging on anvils, and that has a lot of noise. Whereas we're talking about carpentry. Yeah, you're doing some banging with a hammer on wood, but it's less loud. Good. Matkif la Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda doesn't like this. Yomiru kala rabba asir kala zutar shareh. How are you going to distinguish between loud noise is prohibited, soft noise is permitted, right? You have a decibel meter that you can tell exactly, right? Everybody's going to make their own rules and their own designations. We can't make a rule like this, loud and between loud and soft. It's too subjective. Ela ma Rav Chisda la kasha kan bemagle kan behasine. Rather, a better way to differentiate is between sickles, the Mishnah that permits, our Mishnah is talking about using a sickle. That kind of tool doesn't use to make any noise at all, and maybe fixing assemblies also, just screwing the bolt back in. Whereas talking about chisels, if you have to chisel something, that's what makes a lot of noise. So the difference is not, this distinction is not between a loud sound and a low sound, but rather no noise at all versus making some sound. So you can fix things, just don't make sound because of the environment. We don't want to have hear annoying sounds of construction during Chol Moed, even though the particular thing, because you need it right then, is permitted. Or another answer is that our Mishnah is talking about before the Gezerah. It was permitted. After the Gezerah, then it's not permitted. That's the other Mishnah is talking about that. Rabbi Sheh says actually it's a machloket. Even though both of these are anonymous, they're actually said by two different people. Rabbi Yehuda is strict in this regard. Rabbi Yosef is lenient. How so? The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Bar Abdimi Man Tana LeShinui BaMoed B'Davar HaAved Delak Rabbi Yosef. Right? Who says you have to do a shinui? That even if generally things are not permitted on Chol Moed. If it's Davar HaAved, if you're going to have substantial loss to the principal, then you're allowed to do it. But even then, you have to do it in an unusual way. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, right? And not the opinion of Rabbi Yosef. So there you go. The Mishnah, which says prohibited, would be Rabbi Yehuda. If you really need to do it, you have to do it with the back of your hand in some unusual way. Whereas our Mishnah says, yes, you can fix these things. That's Rabbi Yosef, which is permitted. We're going to see more about the machloket soon. So according to who do we follow nowadays when we take the lintel of the door? If it's loose, we go and nail it and make it strong on Chol Moed. We follow Rabbi Yosef. He says permitted. You don't have to do it with your left hand. You don't have to do it with the back of your hand. Just go ahead and fix it. It's fine. And lastly, regarding food, as long as you can eat it on Chol Moed, you can pickle it. Bedita lebai kavre. So here's a story that one time the Bedita River overflowed and then leaving a lot of fish. Right? The river overflowed, fish went all over the field. And everyone went and they said, oh, look, fish, easy to get, right? And they trapped them. You barely even need to trap them. Maybe they're in a little puddle and you got to just take them out. And they brought them home. They have so much, so what are they going to do with it? They can't eat it all right then. So Rava said, you're permitted, you can salt the fish and preserve it for later. Abaye challenged him from our very Mishnah. It says only if you're going to eat it on Chol Moed, then you can preserve it. But look at all this fish here. They're not going to be able to eat all that much. Now they're preserving it for after Chol Moed. So Ravasi has a more expansive definition and says since when they first went, they said, oh, free fish, right, let's go and we'll eat it. And they didn't know how much they're getting, so they got as much as they could. They bring it home, and now they realize, oh, this is too much. We can't eat all this in just the next couple of days. But if we leave it, then it'll be ruined. And so therefore, it's kind of like merchandise that will go bad. And we already said that that would be a substantial loss. So even though actually it's not a loss because they just got it for free, but once they do get it, right? So you couldn't go out and get it in the first place just to make money and then preserve it. But since they already got it in mind to eat it, and now they see, oh, it's too much, we have to preserve it. So we don't have to, they don't have to sustain that loss, and they can preserve it. Another version of this discussion, Rava even permitted them to go and trap the fish. Mezal, aituhu mimlach, and bring it home and salt it. Permitted the whole thing. Kebashin shehu yachol de'echol mehen kobshan tenan. We just learned in our Mishnah, only if you're going to eat it on that day, then you can salt it. But now they're going and you're allowing them to go and bring and salt with too much, more than they can eat. Mitakeli agav isesa. Ki had Shmuel avad le shitin asise ve'achal. This is not that. So he said, Rava said to him, these fish that were just salted can be eaten now. That see, usually when you're putting it in salt for it takes a while for the process, and then it's actually kind of a form of cooking it by being in the strong salt if they're small fish. And so Amaleh, he said, Rava said, yes, in fact, these actually can be eaten right now, because Shemuel, he would do this very thing. He would press the salted fish 60 times, and that made it ready to eat immediately. So theoretically, they could all be eaten. And in fact, one time I went to the house of the Exilarch, this was actually even a fancy dish, and he pressed it 60 times, and then they were able to eat it. All right, and now a little bit more advice about fish dishes. Rav Ikla debe Rav Shapir. So Rav went to the house of Rav Shapir. Aitu lekamaihu kahu kavra. They brought him some fish. Tilta bishula, tilta milcha, tilta tavta. And 1/3 of it was cooked, 1/3 was salted using this pressing method, and 1/3 broiled. And it was very delicious. So you see, this is a way to eat fish. Amar la Rav, amar li ada sayada, kavra samuch lemisarhe ma'ali. So Rav says, this ada, the fisherman, said that if you have a fish and you leave it out, it's close to spoiling, don't throw it out. It's very good. You can salvage it and you can make it taste delicious. Amar Rav, amar li ada sayada, kavra tavye ba'hu, asku ba'avu, michle bibre, ishte ale abu. And so it's delicious because you can use this salting and pressing method, and actually, the kind of that decay will give it a interesting taste that they would have liked. So Rav also says, in the name of the fisherman, if you have fish, then you should broil it with its brother, meaning salt, because it swims in salt water. And you should put it in with its father, meaning water, because water kind of gives birth to it, and eat it with its son, meaning the brine that comes from it. So, you prepare the fish with all the things that are near us surrounding it. And drink after you finish, drink its father again, meaning water. Another and more fish recipes. After you eat fish, cress, and milk together, then you should go for a walk, right? Let the body carry them and not the bed carry them. Don't go to sleep, right? You gotta walk that off. It's it's delicious, but you gotta help it digest well. Amar Rav, amar li ada sayda, kavra techle v'chalba maya v'la shichra v'la chamra. Furthermore, when you eat this fish, cress, and milk concoction, best to follow it up with water and not beer. And if you don't have water, then beer rather than wine, but don't have wine after this, because that would not be healthy. All right, so we started off this perek with talking about watering the field, and we ended off with also the benefits of drinking water. Hadran alach mashkin bet hashelachin. The second perek continues with the theme of the machloket between the Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbi Yosef. regarding work that is important to do during Chol HaMoed, and is going to now introduce yet another parallel concept of work that an Avel may or may not do. Someone who is in mourning, also the rabbis wanted him not to work so that he could concentrate and should concentrate on the loss of his loved one. Nevertheless, in certain cases, an Avel can do certain things. So let's see the parameters. Mi shafach et zetav. When people had a lot of olives, they would leave them in a vat for a while to soak up and soften, and then they would do this turning over of the olives, and that means they are ready for going to the press. Now, once you turn over the olives, you got to put them in the press and right away, otherwise they will spoil. Here's an example of an ancient olive press where you take the olives and you put them here in between various mats, and you put a heavy stone on top of it and a beam, and then using the leverage of the beam and stones attached to it, it would put a tremendous amount of pressure on the olives, and then everything would, the oil would come out. And they would leave it like this for a while, and then they would move it around and press it again, and then that's the second stage of olive oil would come out. Okay, so Misha Vachlet, so his olives are ready to go. And someone died and he now went into mourning. Now, what should he do? He's not supposed to work. Or some unavoidable accident happened, and for whatever reason, or maybe he had workers coming, and the workers said, "Yeah, we're going to show up on Monday, and we're going to press the olives for you." And then, what do you know? The workers don't show up. This doesn't happen ever today with contractors. They always show up when they're supposed to, but back then, this was a problem. So what can he do? Even this, well, which cases is talking about is a good question. Okay, in one of these cases, you can put the first press there and leave it until after the Moed. Now, by saying after the Moed, you see that this is talking about Chol HaMoed. So something happened, this honest, or the workers didn't come. They were supposed to come before the holiday started, and now they didn't come, and I already overturned them, and now they're going to spoil. So in the middle of Chol HaMoed, so in that case, I am allowed to do the first pressing, and that way most of the olive oil will come out then, and I will be saved from substantial loss. And I'll leave it like this until after Chol HaMoed. After the whole holiday finishes, then I'll go and do the second pressing. So the Yehuda, he's the one that minimizes work. He agrees that this is a substantial loss. You're allowed to do the first press, but then that's it. Okay, a question that we're going to deal with is, what about the Avel? Is he included in this? It would seem so, that if he turned over the olives and then all of a sudden he became Avel, he still doesn't have to sustain a substantial loss, and he would still be able to do that. That's going to be one reading. But the other reading is maybe Avel is different. That says he can't do it. And because look at the end here, it says you should leave it until after the Moed. Well, Moed sounds like the end of the festival. It doesn't say La'achar Hashiv'ah or anything like that. So there is a little bit of a disparity here between the beginning and end of the Mishnah, which the Gemara will talk about. Anyway, the Yosef Omer, Zolefik Omer, Avegaf Kedarko. The Yosef is more lenient. He says, press the olives, complete the process, plug the barrel of oil, and get it all ready, and it's totally fine, because even doing it will cause some loss if you don't do all that at the right time. And so the Yosef is more lenient regarding Chol HaMoed. Okay, good. Gemara asks, Patach be'ebel, v'siyem be'moed. You started off talking about a mourner, and then you ended up saying about Moed. We would expect it to say leave it until after the Shiva or something like that. So what is the law of an Avel? Amar Rav Shesha bered Rab Idi. First opinion says Zot omeret devarim hamutarim b'moed asurin b'imei evlo. That one is permitted to do the first pressing if one needs to during Chol HaMoed only, but not for an Avel. For an Avel, sorry, right? This terrible thing happened to you, but you still have to concentrate on that and not do work, and therefore it's prohibited for an Avel to press the olives. And that's one opinion. Rav Ashi Amar, Lami Bayaka Amar, Lami Bayi B'me'ev Lo Devin B'drabanan Hu. Rav Ashi says, no, it's permitted. And it's the structure of, I'm telling you one halacha, and for sure, I don't even need to tell you about the second halacha. So not only Avel, who is a Drabanan, Beshare, Ela Afilu B'moed, T'isum Elachad Mideoraita, B'mekom Peseda, Sharu Rabbanan. So I don't have to tell you that it's permitted for an Avel to do the first pressing, if that happens, and that's permitted, even on the Moed, where it's a Malacha Deoraita, that also is substantial loss, so it's permitted as well. So Rav Asher reads it. I think the Peshat of the Mishnah is like Rav Asher, that both cases are permitted. But anyway, Rav Shisha says that no, Avel is not allowed. And he has proof. Tanya Kivated Rav Shisha Bered Rav Idi. These are the following things that we can do for an Avel while he's sitting Shiva. This is it, right? If he turned over the olives, we can load the weights on it so that the first press will come out. So what do we learn from here? That we save him some from the substantial loss by us doing the work rather than the Avel. That means the Avel is not allowed to do it. And that would support Rav Shisha. So yes, it could be that this case is different because we know others can do it for him. Where we see this Avel, oh, poor guy, okay, let him concentrate on his Avelut, and the community and friends will get together and we will make sure that he doesn't have a substantial loss. We'll take care of his olive press. Okay, and anyway, that does support Rav Shisha. He cannot do it himself. Other examples that are similar to this, Kado Laguf, he has a cask that's ready to go and needs to be plugged or else it'll spoil. Pishtanolot min hamishra. They would soak flax. It has to be soaked for a certain time, but not more, and you have to take it out or else it'll spoil. Samrolot min hayora. Wool from the in the dye stays there a certain time and has to be taken out so it won't ruin. Marbisin said, when his field needs to be irrigated, he got irrigated, and so we do all those things for the Avel, so he will not have substantial loss. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Avzor in lo sedeh nir. Yehuda says you can even do more things if you can sow his plowed field. Because if you don't sow it now, things won't grow. They said, it's set aside for flax. You needed to do it now. Amru lo, but that was only Rabbi Yehuda. Im lo tizara bebachit, tizara be'afel. Im lo tizara pishtan, tizara minaches. Says no, we don't have to do it for him. If he doesn't sow early, so he'll sow later in the season. He'll catch the second round. If we don't put flax there, we'll put some other species that grows late. And so he's not going to have a loss, and we don't have to do that for him. That's a machloket. Okay, we're going to continue this baraita. It's going to bring a lot of interesting cases, even though we already saw the reason why we brought it in the first place is to prove support for Rav Shisha. But now we'll see yet other opinions. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Zetav afuchin ve'en sham uman elahu. Let's say you have a case where the olives have been turned over, but there's nobody around that knows how to press the olives in an expert way, except him. He's the expert. He's the olive presser, the mourner. His casks need to be plugged, and he's the only one that knows how to do it professionally. Or the cases of the soaking flax or soaking wool, and the mourner is the only one that knows how to do it well. The mourner can do it, but in private. So he goes on the side when no one's looking, and they'll take care of it so that he doesn't have substantial loss. This is the kind of thing there's no one else around that can do the job as well as he does. He's the only professional around. So he does it quietly, and then he goes back to his mourning. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. There's a discussion, does Rashbag disagree with Tanakama or not? Because Tanakama didn't talk about this case when there's no one else around. It seems like he's disagreeing because it does say that language, his name first, and then Omer. It sounds like Tanakama would say, if there's no one else around to do it professionally, you do it as best as you can, but he still can't do it. Rashbag says, let him do it. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Im haya oman l'rabim v'saparu balan l'rabim v'gia et haregel ve'en sham oman elahu harei ze yaseh. Furthermore, he can even do some things in public. For example, if he's an artisan that serves the public. Let's say he's a barber for everybody, or he attends the bathhouse. He knows how to give out the towels. He knows how to heat up the water and do everything just right. And then higia et haregel, and the festival comes. There's nobody else to do it. and there's no professional except him, he can do it. And this is, it looks like a, all right, it's talking about the festival, and everybody needs haircuts and they need baths. And he's in mourning, he can do it, even though he's in mourning, even though it's in public, because there's no one else to do it. And there's a great necessity. We saw this is parallel. Also on Chol Moed, you can fix the roads and do everything that's needed for the public. So to an Avel, if he's a public servant, he's got to do it. He's got to do his job. The Baraita continues with a few more cases regarding someone who is in mourning, and says, "Hadisin b'hachachirin b'kabelanin harelu yasu acherim bishbilan." If someone was a tenant farmer, that means he gives the owner of the field a certain percentage of the crop and he keeps the rest. Charichin is a leaser; he gives the owner a certain amount and he keeps whatever else he makes. And kabelanin is a contractor who gets paid a certain amount and doesn't take any of the profits. All these people, if someone is in mourning and he has that job, so then he has to get other people, and he cannot work the land during that time. Other people will work the land for him. However, it's different from achamarin v'gammalin v'sapanin elu lo yasu. If, however, someone was a donkey driver or a camel driver or a sailor, who is moving things, transporting things, and they're hired to take this over to that place. They cannot do it. They say, "Sorry, I'm in mourning. It's got to find someone else to do it." However, these drivers, if they already were leased or hired out to someone else, then they can perform that work. Because let's say they're in the middle of a shipment, and they're going to take things from one side to the other side of a country. And now, if they don't work during that time, they're going to lose out on the entire job. But maybe it's a month long, especially someone who's a shipper might go for months at a time, and is going to lose out on the whole job. That will be something that will be a substantial loss, and so they can do it. You can ask, what's the difference between them and the farmers, the tenant farmers, because that also could be a substantial loss if they're not doing it. I think the answer is that they can get someone else to do it during that time, water the field, pick whatever needs to be done. But the shippers cannot. It's already on this guy's ship. It's on this guy's camel. He's the one that's trusted by the person that hired them to get them across, and they can't just go and give it to someone else. And that might be the difference. If someone is hired as a day laborer, even if he's not in the city where he's supposed to be mourning, so it's not, people won't recognize it, so it's kind of like in private. Nevertheless, it's not permitted. Why? Because that person gets paid by the day. If he doesn't work today, he loses out on today's salary, but that he doesn't lose the whole job. And so it's not considered a substantial loss. It's only a loss of that profit, but not a further loss of the whole job. So so that's the case there. Now, new case. Someone gives you something to fix. You're a tailor, and he gives you his clothing, and you're supposed to fix it. And it's in your shop or in your house. Even if it's by contract, meaning gives it to you and says, whenever you want, fix it whenever you want. There's no time limit. Still, you can't do it, because then it's kind of like you're doing your own. You don't have to do it now. You could do it later, and it's in your house. So that's two strikes against that. Okay, we break out of the Braita to wonder about this phrasing. When you say, even if it's by contract, and you don't have to tell me for sure if it's not by contract, that has to, it has to be, done by the hour, paid by the hour, something like that, then all the more, then also, wait, that's not logical. When it's done by contract, then it's kind of like yours. You have it and you could do it on your own time. And whereas when it's on their time, maybe that would be more allowed. So you can't, why are you saying even if it's kibolet? No, rather, you should read this Braita and say, doesn't matter whether it's by contract or by the hour, it doesn't matter. You still can't do it either way, because it's in your house, and so you're working on something that's in your house, so it's kind of looks like your own thing. Now we're switching the roles around. If the person in mourning was the one who hired the tailor or whatever to do something for him. If the item is in his house, let's say you have someone coming over to do painting in your house, then they should not do it because it's in your house. So you're in mourning, not permitted. If you give it to them, it's in their house, then they could do it in their own time, whatever they want. So the point is not to be doing work and not to have done work when it is in the house of the mourner. All right, and we end with a story, very important one. Marion bere de Rabin, Umor bere de Ravacha bere de Rava. These two people, Marion and Mor, havu lehu hahu gimla de Torah behadeh hadadeh. They each owned one ox, and they put them together in partnership, and that way they would pull heavy things together. They worked well as a pair. A bad thing happened to Mor, meaning so a loved one died and he was now avel. So you know what he did? He took his ox from the pair and says, I'm not working this week during Mishivah, and I don't want my ox to work. So he removes it. Good. Seems like he's doing a good thing there. So Rav Ashi was surprised that this. A great person like Moed should do this. I understand that he's concerned about his own loss. Fine, he can take away and say, I don't want to benefit from while I'm being avel, I don't want to work. But isn't he concerned about the loss of others? Because now his partner won't have that other ox to work with, and Mirion is also going to lose out. So that's not a proper thing to do. V'hatanya im hayu muskarin u'muchrachin etzel achirim harei elu ya'asu. Isn't it taught that if the animal was hired out, leased to another, and then they may perform their work? So in that case, why was it not? This is his ox. Mor's ox was already hired out in partnership with Marion. So we learned above that it's permitted. Well, if it's in partnership, then you can let it go. It's already hired out there. And so you don't have to cause someone else a loss. So he should have let his ox there. So what was he thinking? Mor thought, Adam Chashuv Shaneh, I'm an important person, people look up to me. And so you are, strictly speaking, I don't have to. But I feel like people are going to look at me and say, oh, look, his ox working and he's in Avel, it's not proper, and they're going to look him the wrong way. And therefore he says, I want to go beyond the letter of the law and not do that. Perhaps he paid Marion for the loss that he sustained, because in fact, he's taking upon this stringency, and the stringency is affecting someone else. Or maybe not. Maybe, he doesn't have to have his ox working. And so he went beyond the letter of the law. Okay, this is very important because it does happen when someone is in mourning. So they're not going to work. Very good. But what about the partners? He has a few business partners that own the business together. Are the partners allowed to go to work? So this is a huge discussion. And generally, when one member of a partnership is a mourner, the other partners also are prohibited from working, at least in public, but they can do so in private. And if that mourner is the important person, like his name is on the sign, then they should not even work in private. And that's what we learned from this story. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen.